What's up guys, I'm Funny here, and I'm really looking forward to this video because it's combining my two favourite things that I like to do on this channel. As you can already guess, the majority of my videos that I do on this channel is Pokemon based. However, I do like to throw in some movies as well, so I thought I'd combine the two and give you my rankings of all of the Pokemon films. And since it's going to cover a lot of knowledge, I'm going to be putting on these bad boys. In this video, I'm going to be going over every single Pokemon film that has ever been, from the first one to the most recent one. And I'm also going to be talking about what they're about, obviously. But I'm going to be giving you my likings, my dislikings, and I'll be ranking them out of 10. And then, in my next video, which will be tomorrow, I'm going to be discussing which generation had the best set of movies. So I hope you stay in tune for that. Be sure to give this video a massive thumbs up if you enjoy. And if you think there are people out there that you know that haven't seen my channel, and you think they'll like my channel, be sure to share this channel with as many people as you can. Because I am so close to 100 subscribers. And when I do hit 100 subscribers, I will go to that restaurant that I know and do the food challenge, which is pretty insane because it's a 7 deadly wing challenge and they do look pretty nasty. So let's get this channel to 100 subscribers. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, we're going to start with the first ever Pokemon movie ever released. Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back. This is definitely an amazing movie to watch. If you're looking for good Pokemon movies to watch, I definitely recommend starting with Mewtwo Strikes Back because it will give you a decent idea of how Pokemon movies are. Now think about it this way. Before Mewtwo was around and breathing, there was only 150 Pokemon. But Giovanni, which is the leader of Team Rocket, wanted to clone the world's most powerful Pokemon. So they set as an exhibition team into like South Africa or the far reaches of the world to find a fossil of Mew. And with that, they cloned a perfect copy or a more powerful copy of Mew and named it Mewtwo. However, Mewtwo wasn't too thrilled about being brought into the world just to be a test subject. So he went on a rampage and destroyed the entire island with the laboratory and all the people on it. So they pretty much all died and Mewtwo still survives. Until Giovanni's helicopter lands and tells Mewtwo that he's a friend and wants to help him control his powers. But in actuality, he just wants to use him for his own gain. And then when Mewtwo discovers that he's just being used and being mistreated again, he destroys the entire laboratory, or Team Rocket secret base, or whatever you want to call it, flies off into the islands where it was created, and then recreated the laboratory and planned to take over the world by destroying it. He used his psychic powers to create a powerful storm, which was powerful enough to wipe out all of humanity off the Earth. And he would also wipe out all of the Pokemon that were owned by humans, because he thought that Pokemon owned by humans aren't going to get away with it anyway. But still, he also invited Pokemon trainers to his island just so they could capture the Pokemon, clone them, and use them as his own little Pokemon army. Just as about when Mewtwo was about to wipe off all of humanity, Mew just comes in and tries to stop Mewtwo by trying to convince him that what he's doing was wrong, and it doesn't matter about if you're created or born in this world, we are all the same and we are all one. But Mewtwo disagrees and then tries to say that clones are far superior than birth Pokemon. So then they all started battling each other to the death. And then when Mewtwo and Mew brought out all their power for one final attack, Ash caught in between the attack and turned to stone and almost died. And suddenly all the Pokemon Tears managed to resurrect Ash, which I don't get. But to be honest with you, Pokemon isn't made to make sense, so, you know. But I got to say, this is an awesome Pokemon movie. The animation and story and plot all first rate for like considering how long it was made. Like, I think it was like the early 90s or maybe the late 90s. But considering all of that, it is an amazing Pokemon movie. Mewtwo Strikes Back definitely had a more of a dark and sinister plot hole compared to other movies such as like The Rise of Darkrai or maybe The Power of Us. So I gotta say that this is definitely a pretty dark film, unlike compared to the other ones. So if you don't mind a bit of darkness in a Pokemon, then I definitely recommend this movie for you. For my ranking, I'm going to give it a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10, considering that I have seen many other great Pokemon movies, and I think there are quite a few that can outdo the Mewtwo Strikes Back. But I still really love Mewtwo Strikes Back. Okay, next up is Pokemon The Power of One, which I think is a bit of a bit stupid because they did the Pokemon The Power of One and then The Power of Us. I mean, that's kind of a rip-off if you ask me. In this one, Ash is travelling around the Orange Islands and then crashes into this island. I can't remember the name of it, but it's an island. And basically, the natives on the island believes that Ash is the chosen one, and eventually he does, because of one reason, as my friend David, also known as Dr. Amnesia, would put it, bullshit main character powers! And then the villain comes along. Basically, he wants to capture the 3 legendary birds just so he could flush out Lugia and capture Lugia. He doesn't really care about the legendary birds, he just wants Lugia. And I'm not a huge fan of this villain because he is a petty child who doesn't care about Pokemon and only wants to collect them. Which I say to that, F you. After a while, the story does thicken quite a bit. It's actually really cool. Like, basically, the legend goes, if the 3 legendary birds clash together, it will destroy the world. But Lugia comes along, calms them down, and then just says, shut the hell up, go back to your islands, and then eventually they do. But in order to do that, Ash had to collect the 3 treasures from each of the native islands, put them in some sort of temple, shrine or whatever, play this song on off a flute, which I think looks a bit of a stupid flute, and then Lugia calms them down, tells them shut up and go back to their island, which they do, and then the world is saved. Yay! I have to say, out of all of the Pokemon films, this one was definitely my least favourite, because the villain was annoying and he's just a really crap villain. I also hated that literally every 5 seconds, this female character called Melody basically shipped Ash and Misty together, literally saying that, ooh, you should be boyfriend and girlfriend. Shut the hell up! It's so obvious that Ash and Misty were trying to get together, but you didn't have to make it so bleeding obvious. Like, seriously, ask literally Misty, grow a pair and ask Ash out, you red-haired twit! So, the bottom line is, that movie was pretty bad. For the ranking, I would probably give it a 5.5 out of 10. Because it was better than a 5, but not as good as a 6. So I just gave it a 5.5. So I wouldn't recommend watching this as people who haven't watched a Pokemon movie because you'll probably get the wrong end of the stick. So I definitely think you should give this one a skip. Okay, next up we have Pokemon and the Spell of Unknown. And I have to say, I'd rather get a bullet to the head than watch this shitty film again. It all started when this professor or explorer or whatever you want to call him, I don't know what they call him. Well, let's call him a professor for now. Basically, this guy, I was looking for Entei or Unknown or something like that, not either or, and he eventually got sucked up by the Unknown, and then this little girl who was his daughter found puzzle pieces of the Unknown and spelt out Papa and Mama. That's literally what she called her parents, which I found absolutely cringe because she was like 5 or 6. She could have at least called him Mummy or Daddy. Like, that would have been a bit better. But no, Mama and Papa. And then after spelling out her name, Papa and Mama, using the pieces of the unknown, it eventually it brought Entei to life and gave her her father's voice, which didn't make sense at all. And then eventually, the town she lived in became the world that she dreamt of. Basically, this town became the mind of a little girl. This does not make sense at all. Like, Unknown do have the power to make dreams reality, but that is so BS. And then eventually Ash and the gang toddle off into this town, and then Entei decided to capture Ash's mother because, you know, Molly wanted a mother as well. But I don't know, out of all people, why she wanted Ash's mother. Like, maybe because she met her a long time ago. But it doesn't really make a tremendous amount of sense. Like, nothing in this film makes a tremendous amount of sense, I'm going to be honest. And then Ash wasn't too happy about his mother being captured by a legendary beast. So he decided to go up to the mansion, grab his mother and get the hell out of there. But the Unknown and Entei weren't too happy about that. So they decided to put some sort of guardians guardians around the mansion to stop them from getting any further. Yeah, they did put up a decent fight, but eventually Ash did get his mother back, and it was pretty cool to see Charizard and Entei battle it out. So that was always cool. Eventually, the little girl decided that she wanted things real again, not made up in her own mind. So Entei had to go, but then the Unknown weren't too happy about it. Went rampant, and started the little girl's mind just started spreading throughout the entire town and reached the outskirts of the town. And if it kept on, it have covered the entire world. So Entei sacrificed itself in order to stop it. I hate this film with a goddamn passion because the storyline was too childish, the lines were cringe, and the Pokemon battle between Charizard and Entei were pretty good, but it was too childish, nothing made sense, and the lines were absolutely cringe. So I had to give this a 4.5 out of 10. And I think even that is a bit too generous. I insist that you do not watch this film if you want to keep your hair, because after you watch it, you'll want to pull your goddamn hair out. In fact, let me show you how much I really hate this film. Do you see this fluffy, adorable animal? I'll give you a minute to say, "Aww." Well, I'd rather eat what comes out of him than watch this film again. Fun fact for you, I am actually considering putting him in more videos. Thank you, Parker. I'm considering putting him in more videos. Like, if you think I should, let me know and I will. Okay, now to talk about the next movie, which is Pokémon Forever. Now, this is definitely one of my favourite films. I really, really enjoyed it when I first watched it. It all takes place when Celebi is being attacked by a Pokemon hunter, and the younger version of Professor Oak, well, that's a bit of a spoiler, but oh well. Well, he actually saves Celebi, and then Celebi takes him forward in time, about 40 years maybe? Maybe more, I don't know. And he goes through a pretty awesome journey. And then the younger version of Professor Oak meets Ash and the gang, and they go through an entire adventure to help Celebi, heal it, and help Celebi and Sam go back in time. But what they don't know, they're actually being followed by a different Pokemon hunter, and he wants to capture Celebi to rule the world and become the leader of Team Rocket. Eventually, he does capture Celebi, and he was about to take over the forest, at least. But then, Suicune, Ash, and Professor Oak take back Celebi, he loses, but Celebi does die. But then, all of his past and future selves literally came back, helped Celebi heal, and then, somehow, he lived. And then, in the end, Celebi and Professor Oak go back in time, and the older version of Professor Oak doesn't tell Ash a thing about what happened. Despite it being made by Disney, it was pretty dark. I really enjoyed this movie. it was super badass. I loved the villain, and above all, the battling and the animation was pretty good, despite it being made in the early 2000s. Literally everything about this movie screams awesome to me. Story, plot, villain, and everything about it is pretty cool. Like, if I were to rate it, I'd probably give it a 7, since there are other movies out there that are pretty much better than this. But I still really love this movie. Next up, we have the Pokemon heroes, Latios and Latias. Now, everything about this film is just average. It all starts when Ash and the gang want to participate in this race in this town that's basically based off Italy. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like, the race was pretty sick. But it all starts when the elite members of Team Rocket want to capture Latios and Latias. And also, there's this machine to pretty much destroy the entire town. Eventually, they do capture Latios, and they also got this jewel called the Soul Dew, which in the game can power up Latios and Latias' dragon and psychic moves. It's also the power source to this machine that can pretty much control the entire town. And they also brought back these evil Pokemon, which were fossil Pokemon, called Aerodactyl and Kabutops. In the end, it's up to Ash and the gang alongside Latias to save Latios and stop Team Rocket from destroying the town. However, it doesn't go according to plan, because they do stop Team Rocket, but they couldn't save Latios. I mean, they did at first, but then Latios sacrifices itself in order to save the town, and he doesn't come back to life. But he does manage to make another Soul Dew, but I found it really dark that they didn't bring Latios back. Like, they brought Ash back, they brought Pikachu back, why didn't they bring Latios back? I gotta say, I wasn't too fond of this Pokemon movie compared to the others, but it's still okay. Like, I didn't really like the villains that much. The animation was alright for its time, but like I said, it was a bit dark when they killed Latios and didn't bring it back, and I prefer when they kill off characters, but they do bring them back somehow. So I decided to give this film a 5 out of 10. Next up, we have Jirachi the Wishmaker. Now, I don't really think too much of this film. It's not excellent, but it's not horrible. It's just meh. Ash and the gang decide to visit this carnival that was in town, and they eventually come across this magic act. And they were actually the villains. Well, Butler, the magician, was the villain. And he is sent to Max to take care of this rock, which was actually Jirachi asleep. Because eventually, Jirachi needed to make a friend. So, he took the rock until Jirachi came out of the rock. And when that happened, Butler wanted to take Jirachi back in order to use its life force to create a Groudon. Because he used to be a scientist for Team Magma. And he was fired because he couldn't create a Groudon. So he wanted to prove them wrong and create a Groudon. And basically, he's a petty child trapped in a man's body. Eventually, they took Jirachi back to where Butler found it. However, they didn't know that Jirachi only stays awake for 1 week every 1,000 years. So Max didn't take that too well. So, yeah. But I gotta say, the film was pretty good. Like, the battles were really good. The animation, the story, the plot, pretty good, but there are some flaws. Like, the animation was okay for its time, but the film didn't really excite me like other Pokemon movies do. Like, I have to admit, though, the Pokemon battle between Ash and Flygon and Butler and his Salamence was so cool. Like, that was just so cool. Like, and Salamence's scream just gave me shivers. Other than that, the lines were a tad cringe from time to time. And like I said, Butler was really annoying because he's basically a petty child trapped in a grown man's body. So I would say I would give this film a solid 6 out of 10. Okay, next up is one of my personal favourites, which is Destiny Deoxys. Now, this movie is what a Pokemon movie should be. Awesome animation, great story and plotline, and amazing Pokemon battles. Now, it takes place where Ash and friends visit this town. I can't remember if it was just like a local visit or maybe to participate in this Battle Tower arena that was there. So, yeah. But still, it was an amazing movie. Like, they met this kid who was actually scared of Pokemon. And eventually, they somehow, Ash and him actually got mingled up together. And they eventually entered the battle or tournament and tower thing. And they basically got thrashed. Because this kid is afraid of Pokemon and doesn't know how to battle. And yeah, they basically got floored by these two expert trainers using a Blastoise and a Blaziken. But that's expected since Ash used Pikachu and Torkoal. And after a while, Deoxys came into the town, trying to look for its friend, another Deoxys, which has a different pattern on it. Like, Deoxys usually has a purple core and purple stripes. However, this Deoxys has a green core and green stripes. After trying to look for its friend, he basically multiplied itself and tried to get rid of all of the residents of the town to that way he can find his friend quicker. However, Rayquaza wasn't having it, so he decided to track down Deoxys so that way he could destroy it. I don't want to give too much more away because it'll get even more spoilers, but still, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, the animation, story, plot, it was just all pretty good. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed watching that when I first saw it for the first time. And I was literally on the edge of my seat. Like, I didn't know what was coming next. It was really hard to predict what was coming next. If I had to give this a rating, I would definitely give it a very solid 8 out of 10. Next up is Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. Oh my god, do I love this Pokemon movie. This Pokemon movie has everything that you need in a great Pokemon movie. Good animation, good story, good plot, good battles. Everything that you ever want is in this Pokemon movie. Ash and the gang decides to visit this nearby town so that way they can participate in the battling festival, or more accurately, Ash at least. And believe a shock horror, Ash won! But after holding the staff that belonged unto a past, Aura Guardian / Knight, he accidentally released Lucario, which was an Aura Pokemon, and went through training with Sir Aaron, which was the Aura Guardian / Knight. And then when Ash wasn't looking, Mew grabbed Pikachu and Team Rocket's Meowth, took them to this place called the Tree of Beginnings, I think it was called. And just because, he was lonely and wanted to have some friends. And he basically wanted someone to play with, and so since he's alone pretty much, and has literally only kids' toys to play with. So the entire gang, plus Lucario and this explorer called Kid, I think it was, they all went on a quest to get Pikachu back. And Kid came along just so that she could learn more about the Tree of Beginnings. Fun fact for you, the Tree of Beginnings isn't actually a tree. It's a rock formation. It just looks like a tree, which is pretty sick. This Pokemon movie had so many good battles, loads of ups and downs, and I definitely love this movie. I would easily give it a perfect 9 out of 10. I know it's not perfect, but still, I love this movie. Next up is Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. I want to burn this movie to the ground because I hate it so much. In my own opinion, this is the second worst Pokemon movie of all time. If you want to find out which is the worst, you have to stick around for a little bit longer. It all starts when a Manaphy egg this stupid pirate found basically hatches, and he wants to use it in order to find the Sea Crown and become the King of the Sea, which I think is a load of BS. But the egg hatches in May's arms and decides that was its mother. Well, it makes sense because they claim in the Pokemon world, when a Pokemon egg hatches for the first time, usually the first person it sees is its parent. Which I think is a bit... but I guess it kind of makes sense. Then Ash and the gang decide to find the Sea Temple for no absolute reason! Such utter rubbish. And then they also decided to keep Manaphy along for the ride, and May grows a bit too attached to Manaphy, if I'm being honest with you. Actually, I don't want to say anything more about this movie, because I think it's absolutely crap. Like, the story and plot were absolute rubbish. Like, everything about it is just absolutely crap. There is no good point in that movie. And the worst bit of all, Manaphy's lines were cringe and annoying. If I'd rate this movie 3.5 out of 10, I'm not going to say anything more about it because I will become even more livid. Now we're going to get into some really awesome Pokemon movies. To start off with, we've got Pokemon The Rise of Darkrai. Oh my god. Do I love this Pokemon movie. It is easily one of the best Pokemon movies of all time. The first thing we see is Dialga and Palkia fighting against each other because one of them thought that the other trespassed on its turf. And then they battled each other to the death. But Palkia became severely wounded and tried to escape to a different dimension. And they eventually found its way to another dimension, but it just so happened to be a town where Ash and the gang decided to visit while Dawn was trying to earn another ribbon for a Pokemon contests. But then the town went a little screwy, and everyone was blaming Darkrai for it, when in actuality, it was Dialga and Palkia's fighting that caused it. And then eventually, a Darkrai wasn't too happy about Palkia being in the town and decided to battle it to make it go away. However, it didn't go according to plan because then Dialga found out where Palkia was, transported the town out to a different dimension, and then continued the battle between Dialga and Palkia. And if they kept on battling, everybody in the town would have died. Everything about this movie screams awesome. The plot, the story, the animation, the battling, everything in this movie is awesome. And not only that, it introduced me to my favourite mythical Pokemon, Darkrai. So I definitely say I would give it an easy 10 out of 10. Like, if I were to improve something, I would like to see right at the end they see if, the Pokemon contest that Dawn entered in, like similar to what Marvel does. Like literally right at the end of the movie, they show a trailer or a little clip of what's going to happen next. So I would have really enjoyed if they did that. Next up is Shaman and the Sky Warrior. Now I've got to say this one is definitely a really good movie. Like, I don't think it's as good as the other 4 movies that came out in the Gen 4 franchise, but still, I really, really enjoyed it. It all starts when Shaman got sent to the Distortion World. I can't remember what they called it in the anime, so for now, let's call it the Distortion World. And basically, Shaman used Seed Flare to escape, but it came with a cost. Giratina could no longer basically get out of its own dimension. So whenever Shaman got back into the Distortion World, he scared Shaman until it used Seed Flare so that way it could return back into the real world. Eventually Ash and friends came across Shaman and said that Shaman said to them that he needs to get to the Flower Garden in order to migrate. So that way it can continue migrating. But it took them quite a long time in order to get them to the Flower Garden because basically they got captured, they got sent to the Distortion World, and Giratina almost died. The villain's name was Zero, and he didn't really care about Giratina, he cared about the Distortion World. So he wanted to drain Giratina of all of its powers and then create a machine that can travel over between in the distortion world and the real world. And basically, he wanted to destroy the real world and then rule the distortion world and basically be a god. Kind of like Kira from Death Note, but a lot more like childish. Literally everything about this movie is awesome. Not as good as Rise of Darkrai, but still really good. Animation, story and plot, battles, everything about this movie is awesome. Like, I would probably change the villain slightly because he's a child trapped in a grown man's body thinking that he can surpass God. But other than that, it's still really good. I'd give this movie a solid 9 out of 10. Because, well, 1, I really like Gen 4, and 2, this is definitely an awesome Pokemon movie. Next up, we have Arceus and the Jewel of Life. I adore this movie. What I really like about this movie is that the 2 previous movies that I mentioned actually collide with each other and make one awesome movie. It all ends when it goes back so far back in time that Pokeballs weren't even created, and basically humans made Pokemon slaves. And then out of the blue, this guy called Domos actually made a deal with Arceus. If he allowed him to use the Jewel of Life to resurrect the land, he promises to give it back the next time the moon covers the sun. In other words, a solar eclipse. But Arceus believes that he broke his promise because he attacked Arceus, but he didn't have a choice because he was controlled. And because Arceus was enraged and used up all of its power, he went into a massive slumber for like thousands and thousands of years until to gain all of its power back and then reawaken in order to destroy the world. So that way he can get his own back for humans betraying him, which I think is a little bit too far, but whatever floats your boat, Arceus. And then Dialga sends them back in time, and by them I mean Ash and the gang and this girl who actually has some of Dialga's powers. Basically, Dialga sends them back in time in order to stop this from happening, so that way they can change the future as well as the past. And I gotta say, it is so cool. Like, this movie just screams awesome to me. Animation and plot, story, battling, everything about it is so cool. Like, the main reason the villain wanted to attack Arceus because he believed that if he gave back the Jewel of Life, the city would just go back to a barren wasteland again. But it makes sense because he just doesn't want to do hard work. He wants to take the easy way out, but that's not how life works. If I were to rate this movie, an easy 10 out of 10. I cannot think of anything that can make this movie even better. Like, I love this movie, and I don't know what else to say. I just love it. Next up is Zoroark, Master of Illusions. Now, way back when, I was obsessed with this movie because Zoroark looks so badass. It all starts when Kodai decides to go to the Unova region and captures Zoroark and Azoroark. So that way he can use his powers to scare off people in this town, find the time ripple, absorb the time ripple so he can continue his powers of looking into the future. And destroy the entire town along with it, but he doesn't really give a damn. However, Zoro managed to escape, run into Ash and the gang, and they decided to help Zoro out, even though they didn't know exactly how to do it. But they brought it along and decided that they were going to help Zoro out and help it reunite with Zoroark, even though they didn't exactly know what they were looking for. Yet again, the villain of this movie is a petty child trapped in a grown man's body. However, he isn't as bad as the other ones. Like, he's more likable, but he is still a bit of a douchebag. I love this movie. Like, it's not as good as the others, but I still really enjoyed it when this movie came out. I binge watched it pretty much every single day when I was a kid, and I never got bored of it. Like, nowadays, I do like some movies more than this one, but I still really like it, and that's why I'm ranking it 9.5 out of 10. Next up, we have the two Victini movies, one for black, one for white. And to be honest with you, I do not want to discuss this too much because I bloody hate this movie. This is my least favourite movie of all time. And I say movie instead of movies because they're basically the exact same thing. I don't want to talk about it at all, really. Like, I know I promised you I'll talk about all of them, but I don't want to talk about this one because it's a pile of shit. Like, do not watch this movie if you don't want to lose all of your sanity and waste your time. Like, it's the lowest ranking out of all of them, giving it a staggering 3 out of 10. I hate this movie. Do not watch it if you do not want to waste your time. Okay, next up is Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice. And I gotta say, this movie isn't any better. Like, it is slightly, but let's be honest, I don't really like Gen 5. Like, the Gen 5 movies was just as shit as the anime. Keldeo is a mythical Pokemon that hangs around the Swords of Justice because he wants to become a Sword of Justice. In order to do that, you have to battle Kyurem and win. Like, when you pass through his Ice Gate, the battle starts and you can't stop it. Like, no one can interfere. But eventually, like, the Sword of Justice interfered and got frozen. Keldeo ran away, and because he was, well, a coward, and he lied to Kyurem because he said that he was a Sword of Justice, but he lied. Then he stumbled into Ash and the gang, and they helped him get his confidence back, and he went to face Kyurem one more time, and Ash and the friends freed the Swords of Justice. Although Keldeo didn't win when he battled Kyurem, but he still managed to put up a decent fight. He managed to regrow his horn, pick up his resolute form, and it did put up a decent fight. Like, better than his previous fight, because Kyurem basically kicked the crap out of Keldeo. Apart from the animation, which is pretty good if I must be honest, everything else was average. Story, plot, everything was just meh. Like, it could have been tons better. Like, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 10, but still, I definitely think there are better movies out there than this. Plus, I don't really like it when the Pokemon are the bad guys anymore. Like, I really like it when the humans are the bad guys. Like, Mewtwo did it first, and he did it way better than anybody else. Like, I think we need to give the humans more of a chance. Next up, we have Genesect, The Legend Awakens. Now, this movie was probably the better one out of the Univolot. However, it was crap. It all started when these 5 Genesect were resurrected by Team Plasma and then were weaponized. And they managed to escape from Team Plasma's base and then, just flew off somewhere trying to find where they used to live, but they couldn't find it because where they lived was like hundreds of thousands of years ago, and it was completely different from how it was like 100,000 years ago. They found a home for itself where it was this city, and they basically made a nest, and it was pretty dangerous though. Like, one wrong move and the entire town could have actually blown up. Like, it was so, cool, but weird at the same time. Like, I have seen better. Like, Ash and the friends did try to stop them, and they, well, if I'm blunt, got their asses kicked. However, I really enjoyed seeing Mega Mewtwo. Like, that was when, a Gen 6 was revealed. Like, it was so cool. I didn't really like the design of it, because it's basically, ripping off the tail and putting on its head. But still, I thoroughly enjoyed seeing that Mega Evolution for the first time. The animation, story and plot were really, really good, but I've seen better. Like, it wasn't, terrific, but it wasn't shit. It was just meh. and that's why I gave it a pretty solid 6 out of 10. Alright people, we're nearly done, only 5 more left. I'm sorry if I like dragged this video on a little bit, but I really thoroughly enjoyed making this. So let's get on with the next one. It is Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. Now this one was definitely like my least favourite out of the Carlos movies, but I still really enjoyed it. Like story, plot, animation, battling, really good. Like I thoroughly enjoyed the story of like a Diancie going off to find Xerneas, so that way it could extract its fairy aura and make a heart diamond in order to save its kingdom. Like that is pretty cool if you ask me. Then Diancie accidentally bumped into Ash because it was actually being hunted by these Pokemon poachers, because basically Diancie has the power to create diamonds. And as you know, diamonds are extremely valuable. And they just wanted a Diancie so that way they could earn money. That is pretty heartless if you ask me. But still, these villains aren't the greatest. In fact, they're some of the worst. Like, they're just crap when it comes to other Pokemon villains. And then, accidentally, they unleashed Yveltal. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I'm pretty sure it's like that, but I tried. And Yveltal wanted to basically destroy the entire forest and pretty much the entire world. It went on a mass rampage and literally destroyed everybody in its sight, which was pretty savage, if you ask me. And eventually, Xerneas sacrificed itself in order like Yveltal to stop. And yeah, and then I don't know what else to say really. Like, it's a pretty good movie, but it's not great. Like, it has its moments. Like, I really enjoyed seeing like the first like mythical Pokemon that can mega evolve. Like, that was entertaining. I've got to say, I'd probably give this movie a solid 7 out of 10. Next up is Hooper and the Clash of Ages. I really love this movie. Like, if you saw my top 10 favourite movie video that I made way back when, like when I literally had like no subscribers, like it was in my top 10, and it's still in my top 10 favourite Pokemon movies. And if you watched it, you'd probably know why. It all starts thousands of years ago when Hooper Unbound form literally granted everybody wishes and entertained it with Pokemon battles. However, it went a bit too far when it started summoning legendary Pokemon and accidentally destroyed most of the town. So this guy comes up with the prison bottle and imprison most of Hooper's powers, and then sealed up in the caves where no one will be able to find it. But then the prison bottle was found, brought back to town, and it turns out that Spirit of the Hooper Unbound form is absolutely pissed off that as literally it was been sealed for thousands of years and wants revenge on the entire town. So each time someone grabs the prison bottle, they become a possessed zombie. And then every time they get near Hooper, they open the prison bottle, and then the evil Hooper takes control of Hooper and destroys the crap out of the town. Eventually, the two Hoopers become separate bodies. Like, it's kind of like the shadow of the Hooper. And eventually it summoned legendary Pokemon to destroy the entire town. And eventually he even tried to kill the good Hooper. Yeah, it didn't really have a happy vibe to it, but it was still an awesome movie. Like, some of Hooper's lines were a bit cringy, like even like when it went into its Unbound form, but the battles between the legendary Pokemon more than made up for it. And I would probably give this movie a solid 9 out of 10. Like, the animation, story, plot, everything about this movie screams awesome to me. So I highly recommend that you watch it. Okay, next up is Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel. Now, I gotta say, this is a pretty cool movie. This was also my top 10 favourite movie video. Like, I'll leave a link to it down in the description below so you can watch it. It wasn't one of my best videos of all, because I was only just starting out as a YouTuber, but it's definitely one of my personal favourites. I have to say, the storyline in the movie is a bit whack, But the general story is Ash and friends come across this Volcanion, and then somehow Ash got this electric band around his waist, which means him and Volcanion can't be more than like a couple of feet away from each other. Otherwise, they'll just like magnetize together, and Ash will literally crash into Volcanion's leg. And then Volcanion goes back to the secret garden where Magearna is. I think at the beginning he was actually on the ship fighting off some humans, but I think that's probably because they captured Magearna. I haven't watched it in quite a while, so I can't remember every detail of it. And then Volcanion eventually got Magearna back, went back to this secret village where these Pokemon live because they were abused by their trainers or by humans in one way or another. And then eventually they found their way there, and Volcanion and Magearna guarded them, so that way they can't be hurt by humans ever again, because Volcanion doesn't exactly trust humans, and he doesn't trust Pokemon owned by trainers either. The storyline and plot may be a little bit wacky, but the battles were so awesome, and I also found it quite intriguing that they made a device that actually can Mega Evolve Pokemon that were wild and didn't need the stones or strong bonds. And they could even like control them at will. That is pretty cool if you ask me. And I quite enjoyed that movie. Like, if I had to rank it, I'd definitely give it an 8.5 out of 10, because the storyline was a bit wonky. But still, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Okay, time to get into the final two. Now, one is definitely better than the other, so I'm going to discuss the better one because it was made first. And that is Pokemon I Choose You. At first, it does kind of follow how Ash and Pikachu first met. Then they went a bit wonky and decide, what the hell, throw in some new Pokemon that from newer regions and add in a more better storyline. Like, this movie is so awesome. I love it to pieces. Animation and story and plot, including the battles, all first rate. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed watching Ash actually trying to track down Ho-Oh just so that he could have a battle with it. Like, that is pretty weird. Like, why would you want to track down a legendary Pokemon just so you can battle it? If it were me, I would track one down to catch it, not battle it. But still, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, I enjoyed the growth of Ash. Like, it was kind of like cool to see like Marshadow make him dream about Pokemon not existing, basically our world. But it was so awesome. I was on the edge of my seat and I did not know how it was going to end. I thoroughly enjoyed every part of that movie. He met two new travelling companions within Verity, who is a water-type trainer, and Cynthia's daughter, and Sorrel, who is longing to become a Pokemon professor. And he also met his new rival, which, well, is an arsehole, which his name is Cross, and he is a pretty powerful trainer in my own opinion. If I were to change anything about the movie, I would probably show Ash getting more gym badges, and probably see him capture more of his old Pokemon, such as like Primate, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, even more. Like, I would really like to see Ash catch more of his old Pokemon. But we couldn't have everything. Like, if I were to rate this movie, it was an easy 10 out of 10. This is actually my number 3 on my top 10 favourite movie video, I think. Like, again, I will leave it down in the description below so you can watch it. Wasn't one of my best videos, but I quite enjoyed it. And now it's time for the final movie. And it is Pokemon: The Power of Us. Now, this movie definitely wasn't as good as every other movie that I really enjoyed, but it was still really cool and I quite enjoyed it. Ash goes to this town to enter a Pokemon catching contest, so that way he can like win some sort of trophy, or I don't know. But it was quite entertaining to watch people capturing all of these different species of Pokemon. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I gotta say, the story was a bit wonky. Like, it didn't exactly, like, make sense, if that makes sense. Like, it was just hard to keep track of it all, that's all. The story and plot was difficult to keep track of. The animation wasn't that great. Like, some animation and like past Pokemon movies were better than that. And there was, like, the worst bit of all, there was no Pokemon villain at all. But other than that, it was pretty good, and it did have some funny moments in it. If I were to rank it, I'll definitely give it a 6 out of 10 because, like, there are so many other Pokemon movies that could outdo it. And I definitely think that you should like give this one a skip. But it's okay. Like, if you're like a beginner, like, I probably like wouldn't start with this one. Like, I probably like watch it further down the line. And that is my final ranking of the Pokemon movies. Oh, and I am done. If you enjoyed this, I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did, and I hope you let me know what you think is the best Pokemon film of all time. Like I said earlier on in the video, tomorrow I'm going to be like taking all of the scores that I put on the separate movies, combining them and make it into an average score, and see which generation had the best Pokemon movies. So I hope you stay in tune for that. If you have any suggestions on what videos you want me to do next, let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll put them on the list. And make sure you share this video with everybody that you know, so that way I can eventually hit 100 subscribers this year. If you enjoyed this video as much as I did, be sure to give it a massive thumbs up, comment down below, share this video with a friend, and if you're new, subscribe to my channel to be an Inferno today. Okay, that's all from me, so until the next time, this is Infernape, signing off. Bye!